When 17-year-old Marcus helped a stranded stranger fix his broken motorcycle under a Seattle overpass, he never imagined that one simple act of kindness would bring 120 Hell's Angels roaring to his doorstep the very next morning. The homeless teenager thought he was just helping repair a bike, but he had no idea he was about to gain a brotherhood that would change his life forever. What happens when the most feared motorcycle club in America decides to repay a debt of honor to someone who has absolutely nothing left to lose? The gas station's neon sign buzzes like an angry wasp against the November darkness, casting sickly yellow light across cracked asphalt where puddles reflect the interstate's distant glow. Marcus Chen presses his back against the cold brick wall, feeling the vibrations from 18-wheelers thundering past on Highway 99, their diesel exhaust mixing with the acrid smell of burnt coffee from the convenience store's perpetually overheating machine. His fingers trace the frayed edges of his grandfather's worn work jacket, the one that still carries the faint scent of WD-40 and Old Spice, even 3 years after the funeral. Even after all the nights sleeping rough in doorways and under bridges, where that smell was the only thing that felt like home. The backpack between his knees holds everything: a spare t-shirt with more holes than fabric, a toothbrush he found still wrapped behind a McDonald's dumpster, and 14 crumpled bills that have to stretch until he can find work somewhere that doesn't ask too many questions about addresses or references. His stomach clenches with familiar hunger as he watches a family pile out of a minivan, their voices bright with the kind of easy laughter that comes from never wondering where your next meal will come from. And he pulls the jacket tighter around his thin frame, trying to become invisible in the way he's perfected over months of avoiding security guards and social workers and anyone whose job it is to put homeless kids back into a system that never wanted them in the first place. The massive Harley-Davidson appears like something from a dream, its chrome gleaming under the fluorescent lights as it rumbles toward the pumps with a deep-throated growl that Marcus remembers from his grandfather's stories about the bikes he worked on back when gas cost 30 cents a loaded gallon, and men still fix things with their hands instead of throwing them away. The engine sputters once, twice, then dies with a mechanical sigh that sounds almost human, and the rider, a mountain of leather and silver hair, slumps over the handlebars like Atlas, finally giving up on holding up the world. Marcus knows that look, has warned himself in bathroom mirrors at truck stops when he thought no one was watching. The expression of someone whose last lifeline just snapped and left them falling into the dark. The smart thing would be to stay hidden, to let someone else deal with whatever drama is unfolding 20 feet away, because getting involved has never brought him anything but trouble and pain and the kind of disappointment that cuts deeper than hunger. But something in the man's defeated posture reminds him of his grandfather in those final weeks when the cancer made him small and fragile and desperate for someone to care. And Marcus finds himself standing up despite every survival instinct screaming at him to run. "Engine trouble?" The words escape before he can stop them, carried across the parking lot on breath that fogs in the cold air.
And when the biker looks up with eyes that have seen too much highway and not enough peace, Marcus knows he's just changed the direction of both their lives in ways he can't begin to imagine. The biker's name rolls off his tongue like gravel and whiskey. Jake Morrison. And his voice carries the weight of 1,000 miles of loneliness as he explains that his daughter Sarah is getting married tomorrow morning in Sacramento. The first time she's spoken to him in 5 years. The first time she's forgiven him for all the ways he chose the road over family dinners and bedtime stories, and the quiet moments that build a father's love. Marcus kneels beside the Harley without being asked, his fingers finding the engine with the same instinctive knowledge that his grandfather taught him in the garage behind the house on Elm Street back when the world was smaller and safer and made sense in ways it never has since. "Carburetors flooded," Marcus murmurs, his hands working with practiced precision despite the cold that makes his joints ache. And Jake watches with the kind of wonder usually reserved for miracles, as this kid, who looks like he hasn't eaten in days, cleans each component with the reverence of a priest handling sacred relics. The smell of gasoline stings Marcus's nostrils, but underneath it, he catches something else. the metallic scent of desperation that clings to people who are running out of time, running out of chances, running out of ways to make things right with the people who matter most. "She probably thinks I'm not coming," Jake says quietly, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he lights a cigarette, the flame illuminating deep lines carved by wind and worry, and the particular kind of regret that comes from loving someone from a distance. Hell, maybe it's better if I don't show up. Maybe she's better off walking down that aisle, thinking her old man is just another deadbeat who couldn't be bothered to... Don't. Marcus's voice cuts through the night air with surprising force, his eyes never leaving the engine as he speaks. Don't give up on her before she has the chance to give up on you. Trust me, man. The regret of not trying hurts worse than the pain of being rejected. The words taste bitter in his mouth because he knows them intimately, has lived them every day since his mother chose heroin over her son and left him to navigate the world alone with nothing but his grandfather's lessons and a stubborn refusal to believe that love always ends in abandonment. The Harley roars back to life with a sound like thunder, blessing the earth, and Jake's face transforms from despair to something that might be hope as he grips the handlebars with hands that know exactly where they need to go. He reaches for his wallet with the automatic gesture of a man accustomed to paying for services rendered. But Marcus steps back into the shadows, shaking his head with the kind of dignity that poverty hasn't been able to steal from him. "Just get to your daughter," he says. And the words hang in the cold air between them, like a benediction, like a prayer answered by someone who understands that sometimes salvation comes not from getting something, but from giving it away. Jake stares at him for a long moment, memorizing the face of this unlikely angel who appeared when he needed hope most, then guns the engine and disappears into the night, leaving Marcus alone with the lingering scent of exhaust and the echo of gratitude that sounded almost exactly like his grandfather's voice, saying, "Good job, son," in that way that made him believe for just a moment that he might actually be worth saving after all.
Dawn breaks gray and unforgiving over the gas station, frost coating the windows like nature's own prison bars, while Marcus counts his remaining coins with fingers so cold they barely bent, the metal discs clicking together with the hollow sound of diminishing hope. He's been awake all night, too wired from the encounter with Jake to sleep, replaying the moment when the biker's eyes filled with something that looked like salvation. Wondering if kindness is just another word for stupidity when you're 17 and homeless and running out of ways to survive the world's casual cruelty. The coffee machine inside the convenience store gurgles like a dying animal, and he's calculating whether he can afford the $1.50 for something hot to warm his hands when he hears it. A sound like the apocalypse rolling down from the mountains, growing louder and deeper until the very air seems to vibrate with mechanical fury. They emerge from the morning mist like modern-day horsemen, chrome and leather gleaming in the pale sunlight as 120 motorcycles thunder down Highway 99 in perfect formation, their engines creating a symphony of power that makes the gas station windows rattle in their frames and sets off car alarms 3 blocks away. Marcus feels his blood turn to ice water as he recognizes the distinctive patches, the death's heads and winged skulls that mark these riders as members of the most notorious motorcycle club in America. The Hells Angels arriving like an army, with a purpose that can't possibly have anything to do with him except in his worst nightmares. His legs want to run, but his feet seem welded to the concrete as the convoy pulls into the gas station with military precision, surrounding him not in a circle, but in something that looks impossibly like protection, their bikes forming a barrier between him and the rest of the world. At the head of this magnificent procession rides Jake, but not the broken man from last night. This Jake wears his colors with the pride of a king wearing a crown, his leather cut displaying patches that speak of decades on the road, brotherhood forged in fire, and a position of respect that commands attention from men who bow to no one. He removes his helmet with deliberate ceremony, his silver hair catching the morning light as he surveys the scene like a general reviewing his troops. And when his eyes find Marcus standing frozen by the gas pumps, his weathered face breaks into a smile that transforms his entire being from road warrior to something that looks terrifyingly like family. "Boys," Jake's voice carries across the parking lot with authority earned through years of leading men who would follow him into hell itself. "I want you to meet the young man who made sure I didn't miss the most important day of my daughter's life." The words hang in the cold air like a benediction.
And suddenly, Marcus understands that he's not surrounded by danger, but by something far more frightening. Gratitude backed by the kind of power that can change a life in ways both wonderful and terrifying. The transformation happens slowly, like watching the sun rise over mountains he's never been brave enough to climb, as these leather-clad giants who could crush him without thinking twice instead treat him like something precious, something worth protecting. Weathered hands reach out, not to take, but to give, pressing crumpled bills into his palms despite his stammered protests.
Offering food from their saddlebags with the kind of gentle insistence that reminds him of his grandfather forcing him to eat soup when he was too sick to want anything but sleep. Their voices, rough from years of shouting over engine noise and highway wind, call out thanks and respect in words that sound foreign to ears, accustomed to suspicion and rejection. And Marcus feels something inside his chest that he thought had died with his grandfather. The warm expansion of belonging somewhere, of mattering to someone, of being seen as more than just another throwaway kid that society would rather forget. Jake approaches with the measured stride of a man who has learned that the most important moments in life require ceremony. And when he wraps Marcus in a bear hug that smells of leather and motor oil and something indefinably paternal, he whispers words that rewrite the teenager's understanding of his own worth. "You gave me back my daughter, son." The wedding was beautiful, and she kept asking about the angel who made sure her dad didn't let her down again. "Now let us give you something back." The embrace lasts longer than Marcus thought possible, long enough for him to remember what it felt like to be held by someone who chose to love him. Long enough for the ice around his heart to crack and let in the dangerous possibility of hope. They don't just give him money, though. There's more cash in his pockets now than he's seen since his grandfather's funeral. They give him something far more valuable. Jake presses a business card into his hand. The edges weren't soft from being carried in a wallet full of pictures of grandchildren and receipts from diners across America, and explains that his garage in Sacramento has been looking for someone with real mechanical talent. Someone who understands that fixing engines is about more than just replacing parts. It's about bringing things back to life. Jake says it, his eyes holding the kind of certainty that comes from recognizing kindred spirits. "You've got the gift, kid. My grandfather would have seen it too." The sun breaks through the clouds as the last of the motorcycles disappear down the highway, their engines fading into the distance like thunder moving on to bless someone else's morning. And Marcus stands in the sudden quiet with a job offer in his pocket and a phone number written in careful script, with instructions to call when you're ready to come home. The gas station returns to its ordinary rhythm of travelers and coffee, but nothing will ever be ordinary again. And as he looks down at his grandfather's photograph, now joined by Jake's business card, he whispers a prayer of gratitude to whatever force in the universe sometimes rewards kindness with kindness, understanding with understanding, and lonely boys with the family they never knew they were searching for. The neon sign flickers above him like a blessing, casting rainbow light on the pavement where oil stains tell stories of travelers helped and journeys continued. And Marcus shoulders his backpack with the weight of hope, instead of despair, ready to begin the long walk towards Sacramento and the first real home he's had since love learned how to live and the sound of engines turning over on cold mornings.